For those of you that don't know me or I've not met you, I'm John Kelker, the president of our Citizens Club. And I want to extend a thank you to Kent Redfield. I don't think I've seen Kent this morning. He is the sponsor of this morning's coffee. So when you see Kent, please send him a thank you. So that you know, this month marks the middle or halfway of our 23-24 year. And those who come regularly know, I encourage everyone to be a member of our club. It's $30 a year. We're collecting dues every month. Carol Sutton is in the back room. If you can help us, that would be appreciated. This morning, our program is co-sponsored by NPR Illinois. We appreciate that. And the effort is to celebrate the arts and hear from two presenters. Joining us are Gus Gordon, Executive Director of the Hoagland Center for the Arts, and Sheila Walk, Executive Director of the Springfield Area Arts Council. Gus has been the Artistic Director at the Hoagland Center for the Arts since 2007 and has been the Executive Director since 2013. His major accomplishments at the Hoagland include paying off the building's mortgage in 2015, successfully organizing a capital campaign to update the aging HVAC system, and helping the organization survive COVID-19. Sheila Walk. Sheila taught high school for 27 years. Her course load included speech, drama, oral interpretation, literature, composition, sociology, I was getting tired, psychology, and business communications. She has directed and or produced 22 plays and 27 musicals, as well as coordinating 22 one-act play festivals. At the end of this month, Sheila will retire from being the Executive Director at the Springfield Arts Council for several years. She will continue to manage educational programs for the Arts Council and be an active community volunteer. And moderating our program is Randy Eccles, General Manager of NPR Illinois, our co-sponsor. Randy became NPR Illinois General Manager in 2013 after serving as Development Director since moving to Springfield in 2008. Randy currently serves as the President of the Illinois Public Broadcasting Council and is a member of the Illinois Governor's Local Journalism Task Force, something I didn't know about. He is also a former board member of the Springfield Area Arts Council. This morning it is my pleasure to have Randy with us to MC or to coordinate a conversation with Gus and Sheila about the arts here in Springfield. Randy, I'll give it to you.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it. Just so you know, we are recording this thanks to Tony and the city who are doing what they do all the time for the Citizens Club. It will be aired later on Community Voices, so we're going to treat this a little bit like a Community Voices segment. First of all, just a show of hands is great, but it doesn't work as well on the radio. If you could clap or something. How many people are involved with the arts here in the audience? Excellent. On boards or do art or something like that. That's great. So welcome to Community Voices and the Citizens Club special event here. Sheila Walk and Gus Gordon are our guests. And just to get started, the big question is, why in 2023 are the arts important to our community? Let's start with Sheila.
Because they enrich the quality of our life. They give us something to do. They make us have a specific identity. The arts in Springfield are quite accessible. There aren't even all that many bars that charge a cover to come in and listen to good live local music. The venues are accessible. We've been working hard in the arts community to bring down any barrier that might exist between the art and the people who want to enjoy it or make it. But the arts are more than enjoyment. They're an economic engine. I left some pieces of paper there on the chairs that you can read at your leisure. The economic impact of the arts is pretty incredible. And it's not just people coming to see the show or go to the gallery, but it's the arts venues themselves and the employment they offer. And we're hiring elevator technicians and plumbers and others who help keep the local economy strong. And then you approach tourism. The people who come in from out of the immediate area for an arts event stay overnight. They go to the restaurants. They visit historic sites. So there are so many ways that the arts draw people in, provide enjoyment, and build community. In these times of divisiveness, the arts are something we can agree on, we come together on. They inspire us. They may disturb us sometimes in good ways. So I think for all those reasons, the arts are important to a community, and certainly within a school. Arts education is so important. It allows students to work all the parts of their brain. It helps them to be creative. It helps them find something they're good at. So at every level, I think the arts are important.
Well, it's very hard to follow Sheila because she speaks so eloquently on this subject. And I just want to say before I get started that it's going to be a real loss for our community when Sheila retires, because she has been the biggest champion of all arts groups locally that I think I've ever encountered. She has her pulse on the community. She knows the players. She supports all the players. I have frequently called Sheila the Switzerland of the arts community, because she's the neutral body that kind of just is the one that everyone can go to and not pick sides. And that has made her an exceptional leader in that respect. And I am thrilled that she's going to stay on with the Arts Council in a degree, doing poetry out loud and other things, and I'm sure you'll speak more about that later. But as to your question, Randy, I think the pandemic really illustrated why the arts are so important. Being home for a year, watching Netflix, watching Disney Plus, I think people discovered that they needed to get out and be around people. While that filled the need at the time, while we were all stuck at home, I think it really changed people's attitudes about getting back out. One of the things we're going to talk about is the trend nationally that a lot of theaters are dying. A lot of theaters have not recovered from the pandemic. We've done pretty well locally. I know at the Hoagland before the pandemic, we would sell about 30,000 tickets a year. And as of today, and we have a show going on this weekend that's sold out, but we have another one next weekend that still has a few more tickets to sell. We're at 29,859 tickets. So we are back almost to where we were before the pandemic. That's been a slow build, but people have been, I think, in many cases, passionate to get back out and have that personal connection. That is so important. Now, not everyone has seen that, and again, we'll talk about that. But I think, by and large, people want to get back out, get back into the community. When the doors opened initially, my wife and I, we would say, gosh, do we want to go out to dinner? No, let's just stay home, or let's just watch Netflix. But then finally, we would stick our toe in the water and say, yeah, maybe it is important to get back out. And now, just to be around people again is delightful. We have a performance tonight, a dual piano with Mark Gifford and Damian Kaplan, and it's sold out. And it's joyous to see a full building again. I remember those depressing days when we'd come in 1 hour a week. We would put on our rubber gloves to get the mail and sort through it and look around to nothing. And that was so depressing. But now to have this vitality is so important and so rewarding. So I think the arts bring everything that Sheila mentioned. They bring community. They bring education. They are so important to the kids. That is, it's not overlooked, but it can't be stressed enough that what we can do for the children who get into the arts is absolutely amazing. They gain self-confidence. They gain the ability to work within a group, time management, all those wonderful skills that will serve them so well as adults. They might not all go into the arts, most of them probably won't, but they will learn the skills that will make them community leaders, business owners, lawyers, doctors, teachers, and that starts at a young age, and we are very pleased to be a part of that with our educational program. And I know there are lots of great educational opportunities for kids locally. I think attendance in most of those groups is back to normal as well, and there are more groups popping up every day, and no one seems to be at a lack for students. So the desire is out there, and that's great to see as well.
It is indeed, and I think we have to credit the Springfield community with this rebound. It is not happening, not even in Illinois, that the numbers have returned to pre-pandemic levels. So whatever it is in Springfield that causes citizens here to support the arts is kind of unidentified, but tangible. And so a credit to this community for the volunteers it provides, for the financial support it provides, for the ticket buying public.
Chicago for years has had probably one of the strongest theater scenes outside of New York, and it is really suffering right now. There are a lot of those theater companies did not make it through the pandemic with health, and so it's good to see here in Springfield things are going well.
Right.
To your point on education, seeing my own 13-year-old daughter, I asked her the question the other day, what does it mean to you? And she said, it's been a very inclusive arts community. It's been very supportive, and that her participation there has helped her meet friends outside her high school and create community. So to your point, that arts and education and the Hoagland education and all those different programs are really important. And I think sometimes, though, we forget that after you're a kid, it still helps to be able to do it as you're an adult. So you have like the Springfield Art Association and others that keep that going. So that's really good. But you both, in case somebody here isn't familiar, let's hear a little bit about your organizations. Sheila, the Area Arts Council is an umbrella organization, correct?
It is. It's in its 47th year. Full disclosure, its office is in the basement of this building, so Gus is our landlord, and a good one at that. So we do try to support all arts organizations in town. We might do a little publicity for them. We re-grant state and city funds to local organizations so they can increase their arts programming. We provide money to schools so they can bring in artists, performers, and writers. We run a visual arts program. The exhibit is at the Art Association Gallery until the 21st. So please go by North 4th Street and take a look at those amateur artists on a professionally curated space. We have a poetry recitation contest for high school students. First Night Springfield is coming up, New Year's Eve, so I hope to see many of you there as well, occupying all the spaces in this building, celebrating the 20th anniversary of the Hoagland's opening to the public. We do several other things too, and there are some brochures on the table in the other section of this room. So yes, we're busy, we're small, we're quiet, but we get a lot done.
Yeah, I was always impressed with how they provided grants and different assistance to all the other arts organizations in town. And a lot of times it's seed money for maybe a small mural in a school or something like that. But it's very helpful. Now, Gus, I think the assumption in a lot of cases, because we see you on the stage at times and we hear, the Hoagland has all these plays and things going on. But the Center for the Arts is more than that.
Right. Well, it was... We opened on December 31st of 2003, so as Sheila mentioned, we're about to celebrate our 20th anniversary. As most of you know, this was the Masonic Temple, opened in 1909, the southern portion of the building. The portion we're sitting in right now was built in 1960. And in the late 1990s, it became apparent to the leadership of the Masons that this building was just too much to maintain. And so they thought they needed a more contained space, and they started to look to build a new location and to sell this one. Fortunately, several philanthropists in town got together and decided that this was worth turning into an arts center. Several studies had been done. I forget the exact title. You'll help me out with this, I'm sure. Karen and Sarah had the big campaign. What was it? Was it the 2020 campaign? And this is years ago, about what the future would be like in Springfield. One of the things they said they needed was an arts center. Then, of course, Kay Fuhr, who had Sheila's job at one time, was instrumental in this building coming together, and some great philanthropists. And the list is outside of our building on a wonderful plaque. A few of the names: Grace Nanavati, Judge Tom Appleton, Dennis Bringett, Norm Sims, who I saw here today, Judy Stevens, Carolyn Oxtoby, and many more, Tom Frost, came together and said, well, we don't really need another parking lot. What do we need? And they purchased the building and then started the difficult process of renovating it. We started as a landlord, purely as a landlord, just a building that housed all these nonprofit groups. I think it was 13 nonprofit groups to start. We built that up to 20, and there has been some change over the year, but that was our primary function when we started. But back when I started part-time in 2007, they discovered that they were not going to survive on just rent. And again, they charged very low rent to these other groups because every arts group is poor. That should be in the definition of an arts group, or at least a nonprofit arts group. And so they had subsidized rent, low rent, about a quarter of what it would have been commercially elsewhere. And so their mission was to support these other groups, but they had to do something else to raise money. So they started producing more things. The education program started. New revenue sources were discovered and built. And today we're debt-free, which is amazing. The pandemic was in an odd way helpful to us because it allowed us to regroup, fix some structural issues with our HVAC that we would not have been able to do with a full house. So having an empty building for a year helped us get some of that done. And we are now on the other side of that. The grants opened up. I learned how to write grants during the pandemic. I was not very good beforehand. And I don't know that I'm very good now, but the simple truth is that the people with the money wanted to give it away, so they made it fairly easy for people to get grants. So I'm not patting myself on the back in any way, but it opened up that door to allow us to stay open. Another amazing thing that happened during the pandemic is that our donors came to us first, many of them. We would start receiving checks in the mail saying, hey, you've lost all of your earned income. I know this must be difficult. How can we help? Here's $4,000. Hopefully that will help. That just happened out of the blue. That gave us the encouragement to do a fundraising campaign because we really thought that if this pandemic lasted longer than 6 months, we would be done. We didn't see a way out. We didn't see how our endowment could have sustained us with no earned income. But the public came forward, the grants became available, and here we are in a healthy position that we didn't really think possible at the time. So the Hoagland does a lot of things. The education program is probably at near the very top of what we do because, as you alluded to, Randy, these kids come together and they find their people. They find their tribe. They find like-minded people. Maybe people they don't find in their schools. Maybe they feel a little bit off to the side in their school. Maybe they're not the star athlete or the star student. Maybe they're the one that likes to sing show tunes in the corner. But they come here and they find 50 other kids who like to sing show tunes, and they find friendships, and they build that self-confidence. So that is one of the main things that we have done differently over the years when we started our education program in 2012, is to make that a major portion of what we do.
Yeah, that's excellent. And NPR Illinois is a little different. Most folks know us for news, but one of the key things we also do is highlight the community and convene things and cover the arts. If you can look back at our website, there's an arts section. If you listen to community voices, you'll see or hear a lot of conversations with the different genres of arts in the community. And there are a few other media places in town that do a pretty good job of covering the arts. WMAY and WTAX will have interviews on about shows that are coming up. And the Illinois Times does an incredible job of covering a variety of genres in the scene. Outside of that, is there any other people who are helping amplify or spread the word about media or about the arts?
Well, the media landscape has changed. And we'd be kidding ourselves if we said that it wasn't. And a lot of the local support that might have been there from some outlets is not there anymore because they're dealing with their own issues. But as you mentioned, Randy, you guys are great. I see Fletcher here in the room. The Illinois Times is wonderful. And thank you for helping to get the word out. That is so important. Things have changed. It used to be so easy. You'd put, an ad on a radio station, you'd put an ad in the newspaper, and you'd kind of be done with your advertising, maybe some posters. But that world has changed. And you have to think, okay, now do we do Facebook ads? Do we do Google ads? Do we do any, we have to go with our local, people who have been supportive of us because that's where people in town turn to for the arts. But advertising is very difficult, but there are plenty of people who still support. It has to be mentioned, Jim Leach was an incredible supporter, and that was a loss when we lost Jim. He was a big fan of the arts, and
Jim, we just retirement, right?
well, yes. Well, no, a change of career.
Right.
We didn't lose him,
right,
but he was. Like you, Randy, he was a very, very good interviewer. He would ask great questions, and he had an interest in it. As opposed to sometimes when you can, I'm going to talk myself into a corner here. Sometimes it's just like, so, you're in a play, what's that like? It's like, well, Jim would ask detailed questions, and he would know about the play, and he would study it beforehand. So that was always nice to go and have someone who is as knowledgeable as the people he was talking about. But it is still there, and there is still support there. The donors, the sponsors make such a huge difference. We have lots of people who are great sponsors who help us put on shows. We couldn't do it without their financial support or in-kind support or just helping to spread the word, to be a cheerleader and get the word out there.
Sheila, how challenging is it that people may not know what's going on in the arts? So how can they participate if they don't know?
And that is where we must depend on our media sources, and that certainly is the role of local media, to serve as that public interest and convenience and necessity as part of their charges also. It's never a big part of any program budget, and so we really, the Arts Council and I think other arts groups in town, depend on the free publicity, if that seems an oxymoron, but just the calendar listings or a shout out in a column or an interview on the radio station. That is something an organization can afford, and it really does reach people. And it's not something I've pondered much. Social media certainly has an impact. Websites, yeah.
Yeah, well, we also, Gus, you were alluding to how difficult it can be to fund an arts organization. They're usually shoestring budgets and just getting by, and that makes it, as Sheila was just mentioning, so there's not a budget to really publicize what they're doing, and that's tough. When you look at how these organizations are funded, and as we talked about getting through the pandemic, a lot of them are always just barely making it by. So what are the funding streams, or what can they do to be sustainable?
Gus referenced having a multiplicity of revenue streams, and so that's important. Continued government support is important. It doesn't come automatically. It takes a lot of time to research and to create an application for a grant, to track all the data in the execution of that grant, and then to submit final reporting and documentation for the grant. No one just hands you money, and that's responsible government. So good. Donors and memberships, those look different now than they did pre-pandemic, I'd say. And so the way to ask for support has changed, and I've not found the magic in that yet. Hopefully my successor will. And then sponsors from the business community. Our Artist on the Plaza summer concert series, Friday Night Jazz and Blues, the every week throughout the year, the 11 Amp Springfield concert series, Music at the Market, all of those depend on business sponsors so that we can pay the performers. I think everyone in the arts community realizes that the arts is work, and work should be compensated. And so I think everyone tries to, meeting their budget limitations, to pay those people who are making the art.
Well, it's very valuable, too. If you just step outside the Hoagland here, not only is the Hoagland Center for the Arts about it, but you can look at the art of architecture down at the state capitol, sculpture on the square. You look the other direction, and you'll see the new mural at the train station where they're moving to. So it is everywhere, and it helps make the community a better place to live. I know. Sure. When we were looking at where we wanted to move, one of the really attractive things about Springfield was there was such a developed art community. Things like the Muni and the Hoagland and a lot of other places around are really rich things for us to have. And without those, this would be a tougher community to sell people to come to, I think.
Right. I hear a lot from new people who come into town who are always surprised by how much there is to do and by how vibrant of an arts community we have. We've got, the UIS Performing Arts Center. I see Carly here today, Carly Shank. We have the Legacy Theater. We have the Hoagland. We have Theater in the Park, the Muni, the Springfield Theater Center. A lot of options, a lot of really good work being done. And people come into town and they see that and they say, wow, the last town I was in, they had one community theater that no one went to. But here, there are lots of options. We've got an amazing symphony. We've got a youth symphony. We've got the Copper Coin Ballet Company and other dance groups. I have said this before, and I don't have any data to back this up, but I imagine that when the hospitals are recruiting for leaders, new doctors, that one of the selling points they have to the families who come to look at that facility is we have a vibrant arts community. So if your child is a singer, or your child is a violinist, or your child is a dancer, this is a good town to be in. It's very affordable, comparatively speaking. It's easy to get around in, but we still have a lot of options. And if you really have to get to the big city, Chicago's 3 hours away, St. Louis is an hour and a half away, and you can see, some of the bigger things. But I think we have an awful lot to offer for a town our size, and we keep hearing that again and again when new people come into town to join us.
So we also talk about the various audiences for the arts. What is the DEI, the diversity and equity and inclusion aspect of the arts? How are we doing in this town with that?
We're paying more attention, and that's where it starts. And it's always been, I think, a consideration. We know the difficult history in race relations that Springfield has, and I think that spurs us to do better. Diversity isn't just racial, though. It has to do with age and ability levels and income levels. And I think when we think about diversity, we have to consider all those aspects. And I think we're doing better. There are over 50 arts groups in the Springfield area, and all of them, at least now, are considering that as they recruit members or design programming, and that's good. That's good.
So this isn't an all-inclusive list, but, let me give you a chance. Any comment on DEI first?
Sure. As Sheila mentioned, I think everyone's paying more attention to that. And we have our own committee that has several of our board members on. We have made efforts to diversify our board. Ages, gender, race. We have a much more diverse board than we had originally. And I think all groups are paying attention to that and looking into when they're scheduling their seasons, they're paying attention to that more. They're thinking, how can we do things that include more people? One of the projects we did, as an example, this past April was a production of Our Town that was a multicultural production. People of all races. Lee Steiner directed that, and Lee, those of you who know her know how special she is. She likes to say she curated that cast, and she would find people to be in it, and it was really just a lovely, lovely group. A lot of first-time people on stage, including our lead, Dr. Nikki Florence, who played the stage manager. Lee had to convince her to take that position, and I don't think she had been on stage perhaps since high school, but Nikki just had that presence and had that community. She is so well known in town, and people like her so much that we knew she would be a warm presence. And so that was one example of things we've done, but we do keep that in mind in our programming. We're doing a production in January in partnership with the Springfield and Central Illinois African American History Museum. It's called 1619, the musical, by a Chicago composer, author, and we're bringing that in right before Black History Month starts. So people are just paying more attention, diversifying their boards and diversifying their programming.
Yeah, and I know at UIS, at the Performing Arts Center, they've done a variety of different things. I think they have a visiting fellow who's done some different things. Also, Carly has done some sensory type programming. So all kinds of different diversity comes into the mix. And the arts are really, I think, on the front line of trying to be inclusive and make sure that all folks are feeling a part of the community. So that's really important. We try to make sure we get those stories out at NPR Illinois. And just as we continue with our discussion of the role of the arts here in town, this isn't an all-inclusive list by any means, but who are the big players in the arts? Obviously, both of your organizations are. I think about we mentioned UIS and the Performing Arts Center. There's the Springfield Art Association. When we get to questions, you're welcome to add some if we miss any, but what else comes to mind?
I think every group is important to its members and its participants and its audiences. So I wouldn't say that although the Muni has stellar casts and crews, the Prairie Weavers Guild is just as important for the fabric of our community. So I won't say there's big players.
Right. I think we've mentioned a lot of the names of a lot of the players in town. One time it was when we did a production of Ragtime, and I was in the lobby, as I frequently am after a show, and my friend Sue Hamilton kind of walked up to me and she said, this is the heart of the arts. And what she meant was that it wasn't just one thing. It wasn't just theater. It was the ballet company and the youth symphony and the international folk dancers and the Sangamon Valley Watercolor Society and the Land of Lincoln Chorus and the Sound Celebration Chorus. There just are so many arts groups represented in our community. And like Sheila said, they're all important. For every one of these groups, I learned this once at a chili cook-off, and work with me here for a second. I was asked to judge a chili cook-off once, and I like chili fine, but not especially. So I went, and I was dumbfounded by how involved these people were. They had their own trucks with their logo painted on the side. They worked, in detail, getting that recipe just right. Their weekends were spent going to chili cook-offs, and that's what the arts is all about. The people who are in the International Folk Dancers, they meet every week. Even when there's not a performance, they've worked 40 hours a week, then at 7 o'clock on Monday night, they are here dancing. And every group is like that. Every group is passionate about what they do. They've worked during the day or gone to school, and now they go and spend 3 or 4 hours doing something else when they should be exhausted, when they should be at home with their family, but they're doing this because they love it. And it feeds their souls, so.
Yeah, and then one of the areas that we've seen some really nice development in has been music. I think the venues in particular were really hit by the pandemic, not being able to get people to come. You'll talk to a lot of musicians and bands, and they have not been able to get back to what it used to be, and it's a hard area of the arts to succeed in with any type of financial stuff. But Levitt Amp has been a classic case of building community. When you look at what's happened with the Y Block as they get the different shows there, and they're all diverse shows, and they bring people together, and I think a lot of folks have now gotten in the habit of going, whether or not they know who the artist is, just for the enjoyment of the period. So music's really important, and we try to support that too. We have our HD2 channel, which is classical, and we do a lot of things with the Illinois Symphony Orchestra, and then we have our HD3 channel, the X, which is AAA, and we feature a lot of local music on there, stuff that doesn't get played by any other station. So again, all trying to support each other and help make sure that the arts continue to go. Before we start taking questions, any last thing you really want to bring up? What's the thing that the arts need most right now?
I'm going to play off of what you just said. They go to Levitt Amp even if they don't know who the act is. They're going to support the event. Having people maybe go and support the organization to see something, I think would be helpful, as opposed to, and we did that with our gala years ago. We would do a show as our primary gala event, Gypsy or Man of La Mancha. And I heard people say, well, I don't really like Gypsy, so I'm not going to go this year. And that struck me as, well, that's not very helpful. So we reformatted our gala with a name like Denim and Diamonds. It's a night on Broadway. And our goal was to have people come regardless of who the entertainer was, but to come support the company. So I think that's important. If you like something, if something brings value to your life, if a group, if a business, if an organization or an art form brings value to your life, support it, because it could go away very, very easily.
The unemployment rate for visual, literary, and performing artists remains 5% higher than in any other sector, and those are the individual artists. So support them, and yes, support the organizations with your presence and with your dollars. It is fragile. We all do run very close to the bottom of that. And we did lose a few organizations during the pandemic, but not as much as in other communities. And again, credit to the Springfield area for doing that. Public art, Randy listed some of those pieces, and I see that some people from Pillsbury forward here. The old Pillsbury plant and that magnificent undertaking, it drew artists in from another state, and now there have been successful tours of that art. And when the public realizes the value of that, when the budget for a new building or the remodeling of an old building includes the arts, it surrounds the community and it gives value to that community. And so I think all of those pieces are important.
Is there anything that our state government, since we're here in the Capitol, can do to improve the situation of the arts?
Always, the Springfield Area Arts Council joins statewide advocacy groups in lobbying for increased funding for the state arts agency. And then we're working with that state arts agency to do a better job of recognizing the arts outside Chicago. Chicago is the economic engine for the state, and I never never quibble about that. But we're having amazing art happening downstate, and there's a resurgence in places like Carbondale and Rushville, and even the humanities, the history and the architecture and the theater are beginning to recognize the arts more as part of a community. So all of that, if that answers the question.
Sheila,
Yeah.
I'll piggyback off that. Nora Daly, who is the new chair, well, not new, but she's been there a couple of years now, of the Illinois Arts Council, has really done a remarkable job of trying to include downstate in the money. They stopped the grant process for a year to arts organizations so they could figure out how to serve the entire state better. So they didn't just stop giving money, they still gave money to the organizations, but you didn't have to apply for a grant this year. If you had gotten a grant in the past, you got one this year. But next year, they're going to try to be more inclusive of the entire state. And I have seen that with the Illinois Arts Council. They are paying more attention to us folks in the center of the state and downstate.
John, do you want to go to questions now?
We do, but I'm going to ask one myself. You'd mentioned briefly, I think Sheila mentioned it, first night. And this one's a little bit special. And it coincides with an anniversary here. So one more time, Gus and Sheila, if you want to give a shout out to first night and what we're going to see different.
Sure. Well, it's going to be very similar, I think, Sheila, you'll agree, of normal years. But this year marks our 20th anniversary. And there were times over the past 20 years where I didn't see that happening. But we're here, we're stable, and that's reason to celebrate. So we're looking forward to using a lot of folks in the building. The Muni is one of our resident groups, the Springfield Theater Center, the Copper Coin Ballet Company will be performing, and I think it's just going to be a wonderful evening. Sheila?
It is, evening and afternoon. We are able, because of sponsorships, those business dollars coming in, to provide activities and performances free of charge to the community. So that will happen on the afternoon of December 31st here, and then a break partnering with the Presidential Museum, opening their ice skating rink for people who want to be outdoors and stay downtown. And then in the evening, it's a fundraiser for the Hoagland Center and the Arts Council. So we do charge admission, but you will be able to travel from 6 o'clock to 9:45 to every space in this building and see a different art form. Gus has mentioned it as a Whitman sampler, where you can just taste something that you never thought you might like and find out that you can. It works out at about $4 or $5 an hour to go see a dozen different things. We're bringing in Irish dancers and magicians and face painters and a big band and more. So you'll see the posters start to pop up around town. You're quite welcome to come. First night, Springfield is the longest running first night west of the Alleghenies. That is a remarkable thing. There used to be 20 in this state. Now there's one other one in Evanston where they do one show in the afternoon and call it first night. They don't include so many different arts groups. So we have to be proud of that. We have to continue that tradition. And it is a remarkable thing. It's the 36th year now. So come out and enjoy it. It's so festive. And this year we're putting everything inside the Hoagland Center for the Arts. Next year we'll branch out and go to other venues. And there's nothing I like better than seeing hardy Midwesterners bundled up, moving in the chill from venue to venue, greeting each other, wishing each other a prosperous new year. It's just such a great community feeling.
Will there still be fireworks this year?
There are fireworks, yes, sponsored by the city of Springfield this year. They'll be at 10 o'clock. The best viewing position is at 4th Street and Capitol Avenue, although you can watch from a couple of windows in this building or from the top of the parking garage next door.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. We are going to turn to audience questions. Chris Richmond has a microphone, and if I can ask you, please introduce yourself before you pose a question.
Cinda Klickna. I want to ask you about your work with the not-for-profits in town. For example, the Dana Thomas House Foundation just had the holiday reception. We had Johnny Owens playing in the gallery. We had the flute choir. The Sangamon County Historical Society just had an event with a chorale group. So how do you work with the not-for-profits, and how can the not-for-profits work with you?
It is a great collaboration. We share some of the same artists and performers across our programs. Good for them. It's an income stream for them, and that helps the whole community. So we do have some funding that we can give. The Dana Thomas House has been a grant recipient for us. Is it a big chunk of money? Not always, but for small organizations, it's important. It makes the difference as to whether a program does or doesn't happen. So that's a way that the Arts Council can help, and doing a bit of publicity. I also maintain a great list of performers and writers and visual artists. So when nonprofits are looking for someone for their event, I can happily recommend people who are a good match. And then what nonprofits can do for us is continue working, mutual support, continue working together, the rising tide, as we support each other, and all the ships come up. So yeah, I think that's what we do. Thank you, Cinda, for asking that.
Yes, and I would add that as far as we don't know everything that's going on out there, so it helps when somebody contacts us. And the easiest way is probably to email communityvoices@nprillinois.org, and we try to pull in all the different folks who are doing things and talk about what's going on so that people know. And we didn't get to really talk about partnerships, but we do tons of cross partnerships to make all these things work. It's the only way from a budgetary standpoint sometimes to maximize things. So anytime somebody wants to partner on things, it's really helpful. And just one other thing, because Sheila said it, is I learned this when I was on the Arts Council board, and that is we pay all our artists. When the Arts Council does something, it's important that the artists get paid. And I think especially with musicians, but a lot of other folks, there are a lot of times where people say, hey, why don't you play this for free? Or, we'll give you a bar tab or something. It doesn't help a lot in paying some of their other bills. So when you think about it, it really helps if artists can get paid.
Community theater doesn't always work that way. With community theater, a lot of the performers work for free just because they want to be up there and they want to do certain roles or sing and dance. If we paid every single person who was involved in a show, we would not be here. It's just we're not, and have a $20 ticket price. It's not possible with the economics of it. But we do pay a lot of people too. We partner with nonprofits. I mentioned the Springfield and Central Illinois African American History Museum. We do a lot of talkbacks, especially with our more important, if that's the right word, shows. Carly directed a show for us called Next to Normal, and we partnered with Memorial Health Services with their mental health division, and we had a talkback afterwards. We've done that with the Illinois Coalition Against Domestic Violence, with the production of A Doll's House that we did. Recently with The Color Purple, there were talkbacks with NAACP. So partnering with these groups is beneficial to us because we, can advertise the show through their organization as well, if I'm being totally honest. But at the same time, these talkbacks give a lot back to the community. And the conversation that was with the musical Next to Normal was fascinating because I was really struck by how willing people were to talk about their own personal stories and their own personal battles with mental health issues. And it was a really interesting conversation. Same thing when we did Memphis the Musical. We had a talk back afterwards about race relations, and that was a fascinating discussion that was very important too.
And the Hoagland Center is the landlord for 20 arts groups, giving us a safe place to get our mail and have rehearsals and meetings. And certainly it welcomes community groups like this in also. So I think that's another piece of the Center for the Arts.
Okay, we've got one up front here.
Steve Narduli. Having spent 40 years putting pieces of paper in files, I've always been very impressed with folks who can work with their hands, with the precision, with the imagination. What are you doing and what can you do to integrate arts education with vocational programs, apprenticeship programs, and things like that to get more of those folks involved in the arts?
Oh, my. Excellent. Again, a small grant program that helps schools incorporate the arts, bring in professional artists who work directly with their students, but branching into the vocational aspects, which is so much creativity is demanded in those. We have not done that so much yet. We do have a visual arts program, Art After Hours, that encourages amateur artists to show off their work. But, we've not worked in vocational technical programs. That's good. That's good. I don't know. Gus?
Nor have we. But so many people come to us with the shows helping in all capacities, building the sets, creating the costumes, building the props, putting those together. I don't necessarily know what their individual backgrounds are besides those folks that are my friends, but I know that it takes a lot of that skill and that kind of hands-on ability to take something practical like sewing and turn it into a beautiful piece of art as a costume that gets entrance applause. But there's more to be done in that capacity.
Good morning, Joyce Narduli. I have a question about tonight's Illinois Symphony Pops concert, which is at 7:30 tonight at UIS. Could you please tell us about the other arts groups that are joining them this evening?
I can't. I don't know who's with them tonight.
I know the Springfield Choral Society is performing with them, and the Youth Performance Group is performing with them. Carly's here with UIS. Maybe she could. And Paul O'Shea will be there, and that for me is...
Audiences matter.
Taichi Fukurama, who is going to be the guest conductor, was interviewed on Community Voices earlier in the week. So that is up at nprillinois.org if you want to listen to it. He describes a lot of the folks who are going to be participating in the holiday pops.
Good morning, Jim Donilon. A lot of us in this room, we travel to cities like New York, Chicago, Nashville. Just pick a larger city, and I've thought about this quite a bit. Why do we go to these cities? And the short answer is we go there primarily because of the arts, whether it's to see a play, a musical, a museum, just music in bars or other venues. And I just want to comment on how much we appreciate what you do here in Springfield, because it enhances the quality of life. It gives us an identity. And you alluded to it earlier, I think we can't lose sight of the economic benefits. That helps keep Springfield vibrant. We saw the numbers go down when we had the COVID situation, and let's hope they continue to go up. But it's a delicate balance. It's a quality of life issue, but there's economic benefits. And anything you can do and anything we can do to help out, please keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We did a very small economic impact study. Leadership Springfield, one of the groups, 1 year helped us with that project, and they did a survey of our audience members about where they went before the show and where they went after. And then we took that information and then we applied it to all 30,000 ticket buyers. Just from going to have dinner or get a drink after, and again, this is very unscientific, we would bring in close to $500,000 in business for other businesses just from the people going to see shows and going to dinner beforehand or having a drink afterwards. So there is a big impact of a facility like ours or like UIS or the Legacy of people who need to go have dinner beforehand and make it an evening and make it an event. So, yeah, I think there is a huge economic impact on a facility, an arts facility.
Yeah, absolutely. And you'll see some of those statistics on both sides of that sheet at your seat.
Time for one more quick question.
Karen Witter, I just wanted to ask about opportunities for integration and collaboration between the visual arts and the performing arts. And you mentioned, the sets, they're a visual art component, yet maybe people don't really appreciate that as much because they're there for the performing arts. So what are examples of what you're already doing, and what are opportunities for the future for that kind of collaboration?
Sure. 2 examples. We had a great friend who passed away within the past 2 years, Dave Shaw. Dave was the art teacher at Rochester High School. He was a member of the Springfield Art Association. And Dave would be a set designer, and he would create these magnificent sets. I mentioned, when a costume or a set would get entrance applause, or when the curtain goes up. Dave would create those kind of sets that were as artistic as anything else happening on that stage. Steve Varble is another local illustrator. Steve just designed our set for Something Rotten. He has a very distinctive cartoony style. So that collaboration is very important. When we did the musical, when Springfield Theater Center did the musical Sunday in the Park with George, they partnered with Dave Kane, who is an independent artist here in the building, and with the Prairie Art Alliance, a wonderful group that merged with the Art Association to have artistic events taking place and visual art that was shown at the events. Of course, we partner with the Sangamon Watercolor Society, and we have the gallery open during shows, so when people come to see a show, they can go into the art gallery, they can make a purchase if they wish to. And so that collaboration is very important. Not every show has the best set, but some really make that extra effort and have just a beautiful, beautiful collaboration with local visual artists.
And visual arts galleries often will bring in local musicians to encourage attendance. People come in to hear the music and then they enjoy the art also. So I think they do work hand in hand. There's at 11 Amp Springfield, those Thursday night concerts downtown in the summer. We have a Maker's Row that features the work of local artisans. So I think all art feeds all art.
Right, like the pharmacy has a jazz series that Jose Gobo Jr. does, yeah.
Great. Thank you. Please join me, if you can, in thanking Randy, Gus, and Sheila, and our co-sponsor, NPR Illinois. And Sheila, on behalf of the Citizens Club, thank you for everything you've done, your commitment to our community, and the roles with the Art Council.
Thank you for that shout out. Thank you, gentlemen.
For your calendars, our next program will be January 26th. We will be joined by Dr. Jerry Cruz, Dean and Provost at SIU School of Medicine, for a conversation and discussion about the pending shortages of medical professionals and the medical field. And I've also been given a special message from our program committee. In February, we will be having a program on immigration. We are excited to announce a special two-part evening program coming in February. The program aims to highlight our immigrant neighbors in Springfield, specifically their contributions to our city and the challenges they've experienced. Subject matter experts and immigrants of various backgrounds will also discuss how Springfield could become a more immigrant-inclusive city that fosters a sense of belonging. Part 1 will be on February 1st, followed by Part 2 February 15th. Both sessions from 6 to 7:30 at St. John's Hospital Prairie Heart Institute, the Dove Conference Center. Please be looking forward to information on our evening series. With that, thank you for joining us. Happy holidays and Happy New Year.